When Renata handed me the document, her expression held no warmth, only calculated indifference. The paper trembled between my fingers as I absorbed its contents, a meticulously detailed schedule governing every waking hour of my existence. "Beginning tomorrow, these become your obligations," she announced, her voice carrying an Arctic chill perfected through months of gradual transformation. "Should you decline, you're welcome to gather your belongings and depart. This household requires someone genuinely useful, not merely occupying space." The itinerary stretched from 6 a.m. until nearly midnight, preparing meals, transporting grandchildren, executing household maintenance, laundering clothes. Each responsibility catalogued with bureaucratic precision, as though I were newly employed domestic help rather than the woman who birthed her. "Naturally, your pension covers household expenditures," Gustavo added from the sofa, his attention never leaving his phone screen. Standing in my living room, the very space where I'd celebrated Renata's birth 34 years prior, I confronted a stranger wearing my daughter's face. The transformation felt surreal, nightmarish. "Time's limited for your decision, Mom," Renata continued, methodically painting her nails crimson. "Gustavo's already consulted legal counsel. Given our 2-year residency and property maintenance, we've established rights. You may accept employment status and remain, or vacate while we continue residing here." The ultimatum crystallized: become their unpaid servant while financing everything, or face eviction from property I owned outright. "Consider your options," she pressed, admiring her manicure. "At your age, with a $600 pension, where else would you find accommodation? Here, at least, you maintain shelter, sustenance, and daily grandchild access, unless you'd prefer solitary existence in some squalid room." Gustavo's laughter echoed cruelly. "Besides, realistically, what alternatives exist? This arrangement provides purpose. Better than idle television watching typical of your demographic." My grandchildren played obliviously nearby, absorbed in their tablets. 8-year-old Ethan glanced up momentarily. "Grandma, will you prepare snacks? I'm hungry." The casual normalcy devastated me. To them, I'd already transitioned from beloved grandmother to the perpetually available domestic, the invisible hand maintaining their comfort. "Listen, Mom." Renata approached, placing a condescending hand upon my shoulder. "This isn't about affection. We love you deeply. We're offering opportunity for continued cohabitation. However, modifications are necessary. This household needs organization, and someone must maintain operational standards." "Why must that someone be me?" I whispered, finally locating my voice. "Because you're unemployed," Gustavo responded without glancing up. "We maintain careers, education, genuine responsibilities. You merely collect benefits without productive contribution." The words struck like physical blows. 40 years employed as government secretary. 4 decades rising at dawn, commuting via 2 buses, economizing every penny toward homeownership. 40 years single-handedly raising Renata after her father's abandonment when she'd barely turned 3. Unproductive, I repeated, the accusations suffocating me. The master bedroom, my sanctuary for 3 decades, would soon be theirs. Renata's logic flowed with practiced ease. They required additional space for belongings. The modest rear room, barely accommodating a twin bed, would suffice for my needs. That chamber's exceedingly cramped, I protested weakly. Perfect for your requirements, Mom. You don't need extensive space. Plus, positioning you near the kitchen facilitates early morning meal preparation without disturbing anyone. Strategic placement maximizing my utility while minimizing my presence, relegated to service quarters in my own home. Financial manipulation had commenced subtly. Initially, contributing toward groceries seemed reasonable. After all, we all consumed food. Gradually, my contributions evolved into complete financial responsibility. Renata's savings goals justified everything. My pension existed to subsidize their lifestyle. $150 for weekly groceries, she'd announce, posting lists on the refrigerator. Also, stop by the pharmacy for children's vitamins and Gustavo's specialty products. A quarter of my monthly income, vanishing weekly to feed a household that considered my resources communal property by divine right. My pension doesn't extend that far weekly, I'd ventured. Oh, Mom, perpetually complaining, ran out aside theatrically. Gustavo's accumulating funds for our future home. We can't divert income toward basic necessities. Besides, you eat here daily. Contributing toward expenses is perfectly reasonable. The twisted logic made my head spin. Gustavo saved for their property while residing rent-free in mine, consuming my provisions, exploiting my services. Meanwhile, I, the actual owner, financed the privilege of serving as their unpaid domestic. Lucy, my neighbor of 15 years, eventually confronted me during one of her visits. She'd observed my haggard appearance, the constant grocery runs, my perpetual exhaustion. "Honey, what's truly happening?" she pressed gently. Something fractured within me. For the first time in months, I articulated the complete truth: the schedule, the financial exploitation, the threats, the systematic erosion of my dignity within my own walls. Lucy listened, her expression transitioning from surprise to horror, finally settling on righteous indignation. "This constitutes abuse," she stated with devastating clarity. "Not dysfunction. Not misunderstanding. Exploitation." The words suspended between us, heavy with implication. "What alternatives exist?" I asked, feeling tears I'd suppressed for months finally surface. "Several," Lucy replied firmly. "But first, you must recognize something crucial. You don't need them. They need you. This is your property, your resources, your life." The perspective shift felt revolutionary. I'd accepted my good fortune in having somewhere to live, forgetting the somewhere was mine. I'd internalized their narrative of dependency, when reality reflected the opposite. "Would you tolerate these conditions from an employer?" Lucy challenged. "Working without compensation, paying for the privilege, no rest, no respect." The answer was obvious. No reasonable person would endure such circumstances professionally. Yet I'd accepted them familially, believing blood relations exempted behavior from normal standards of decency. Gustavo's mother arrived unannounced at dawn, 2 massive suitcases in tow, expecting royal treatment. Marissa surveyed my home with critical disapproval, immediately cataloging necessary improvements, at my expense, naturally. "I require special breakfast accommodations," she announced without preamble. "Scrambled eggs, properly dry. Whole wheat toast, barely browned. Essentially tea-like coffee. Fresh fruit, perfectly ripened." I possessed none of these items. Weekend funds had been exhausted on children's demands and cleaning supplies. "You mean adequate provisions don't exist?" Marissa's indignation filled the kitchen. Unacceptable. A household lacking basic breakfast ingredients. When I explained my depleted budget, Gustavo dismissed my concerns with practiced ease. "Use your pension. That's its purpose, maintaining household operations." "My pension's already allocated this month," I replied, feeling something harden within me. No additional funds remain for unplanned expenses. The silence that followed felt seismic. They stared as though I'd committed blasphemy. "You're refusing to purchase food for my mother?" Gustavo's voice escalated with manufactured outrage. In that crystalline moment, standing in my kitchen being reprimanded for insufficient resources to feed an uninvited guest, something within me definitively shattered, not destructively, but liberatingly. "I'll visit the supermarket," I said calmly, "and purchase Marissa's requirements." They relaxed immediately, interpreting my compliance as surrender. They failed to detect the resolution underlying my words. I dressed swiftly and departed, not toward the grocery aisles, but toward the shopping center's legal offices. Attorney David Miller accepted emergency consultations from 9 a.m. "Is this urgent?" the receptionist inquired kindly. "Absolutely," I replied without hesitation. David Miller listened to my complete narrative without interruption, his expression cycling through surprise, concern, and professional determination. When I concluded, he leaned back thoughtfully. "Mrs. Everett, you're describing textbook elder exploitation," he stated with sobering clarity. "Economic and emotional abuse constituting legally actionable conduct." But they claim residency rights after 2 years? I asked, recalling Gustavo's threats. Tenancy rights never include exploitation privileges, David explained. Never include imposing unpaid labor conditions. Definitely never include unauthorized guest accommodations. Relief flooded through me. Someone with legal authority confirmed my perception of reality. What options exist? I asked, the question now carrying hope rather than desperation. Multiple approaches, David outlined. Written termination of informal housing arrangements. Establishing clear boundaries regarding property use and financial resources. Demanding unauthorized guests vacate immediately. If they refuse, then we pursue legal remedies, eviction orders, elder abuse reports. Experience suggests that once families realize elderly relatives have legal representation and understand their rights, behavioral reconsideration happens rapidly. The consultation cost $300, equivalent to 2 weeks supporting my family, 1 night of Renata's romantic retreat. For the first time in months, money felt extraordinarily well invested. Draft those letters today, I instructed, withdrawing cash with hands no longer trembling. Returning home 4 hours later, empty-handed but empowered, I found Renata and Marissa visibly irritated by my absence. The children were at school, affording privacy for the imminent conversation. Finally, Marissa exclaimed, "Nearly 11, and I've consumed nothing. Where are the groceries?" Renata demanded, noting my empty hands. "We require discussion," I stated, my voice steady and authoritative. All 3 of us, immediately. Something in my demeanor registered alarm. They fell silent, regarding me with unaccustomed caution. "I've consulted legal counsel," I began, watching their expressions shift from irritation to apprehension. "I've learned fascinating details regarding my rights as property owner." The silence became deafening. Renata displayed the guilty expression from childhood misdeeds. Marissa appeared genuinely bewildered, as though household staff consulting attorneys defied natural order. I distributed David's formal letters, each bearing official letterhead. Renata seized hers immediately, reading with desperate speed. Marissa accepted hers with trembling hands, her superiority mask cracking. "This is absurd," Renata protested after scanning the contents. "You can't evict family." "I'm not evicting anyone," I replied calmly. "I'm offering continued residency under equitable, legal conditions." Renata's letter specified new terms: $800 monthly rent, equal contribution toward household expenses, respect for my authority and privacy as owner. $800, she shrieked, waving the document. "We lack such resources." "Perhaps securing legitimate employment would help," I suggested, employing her own condescending tone. "Or locating affordable accommodation matching your actual income." Marissa's notification was simpler: 48 hours to vacate. Her presence had never received owner authorization. "You cannot do this," she stammered, voice breaking with indignation. "I'm elderly. You can't discard me like refuse." "I'm requesting you return to your own residence," I replied firmly, "or find lodging where you're genuinely welcome, not an imposed burden." Renata attempted her final manipulation, calculated tears she'd perfected since childhood. "Mom, how can you do this?" she whimpered theatrically. "We love you. We wanted family unity. You respond with legal threats." "United families don't operate via work schedules for individual members," I countered. "United families don't threaten eviction from one's own property for refusing unpaid servitude." Gustavo arrived 20 minutes after Renata's frantic call, his expression dangerous, the face of someone watching their parasitic world collapse. "This constitutes betrayal," he exploded, abandoning diplomatic pretense. "After our companionship preventing your loneliness, transforming this empty house into a vibrant home." "Gustavo, you're 42, I interrupted with hard-won patience. "If you desire vibrant domestic life, purchase your own property and fill it accordingly. Not at my expense." He attempted invoking tenancy rights, claiming legal consultations supported his position. "I suggest presenting those consultations to legitimate counsel," I responded calmly. Mine confirmed no court would grant tenant rights to non-paying residents financially exploiting the owner. Furthermore, your actions constitute elder exploitation, a federal offense. His expression transformed immediately. His legal research clearly involved internet searches and uninformed friends, not actual professional consultation. 3 months later, I awakened in my own bed, within my own room, at 7 a.m, by choice, not obligation. The house's silence didn't disturb me. Rather, it resonated as the most beautiful sound I'd experienced in years. The sound of peace. Marissa departed precisely on schedule, amidst dramatic tears and threats of permanent estrangement, as though this constituted loss rather than liberation. She eventually relocated to senior living accommodations, where staff reportedly endured constant complaints about their inferior service compared to mine. Renata and Gustavo exhausted every manipulation tactic during those 30 days. Initially came denial, insisting everything represented mere misunderstanding resolvable without legal intervention. When that failed, they weaponized emotional guilt, constantly emphasizing my forfeited opportunity to witness grandchildren's development. Anger followed. Gustavo's 2-hour tirade included accusations of selfishness, cruelty, maternal failure, grandmotherly inadequacy. Renata cried, pleaded, embraced me, even deployed the children to request reconsideration. But I remained resolute. David had prepared me for each tactic, providing calm, legal responses to their emotional torrents. The final phase proved most revealing. During their last week, both treated me with exaggerated courtesy more insulting than previous abuse. Suddenly I became Mrs. Everett, complete with please and thank you, as though they'd suddenly recalled manners existed, but only when requiring something. They relocated to a 2-bedroom apartment across town, costing exactly $800 monthly plus expenses. Apparently, when paying unfamiliar landlords, adequate funds materialized. Only when paying me, family, did money mysteriously evaporate. Initial post-departure days felt peculiar. The house seemed enormously empty after 2 years of constant noise and perpetual demands. Gradually, however, that emptiness transformed into something entirely different: freedom. I could breakfast when desired, watch preferred programming, cook based on personal cravings rather than 4 people's conflicting requirements. I could allocate my pension toward personal needs, even indulging in small luxuries I'd forgotten existed. The first time I purchased fresh flowers for my dining table, tears came unbidden in the supermarket aisle. $15 previously designated for specialty cereals or hypoallergenic products for uninvited guests, now $15 creating simple happiness. Lucy remained invaluable throughout this transformation. We lunched twice weekly, explored farmers' markets Saturday mornings, and enrolled in community center painting classes together. "Don't you miss the children's noise?" she inquired one afternoon while painting watercolor landscapes. "I miss my grandchildren," I replied honestly, but not being their unpaid childcare provider. The distinction matters profoundly. Ethan and Valerie visited alternate Saturdays, an arrangement established after tense negotiations. Initially, Renata attempted using visits as leverage, suggesting that without certain concessions, coordination might become complicated. David advised maintaining written communication regarding visits until Renata realized her children couldn't serve as emotional blackmail tools. Eventually, we achieved civilized agreement. Children visited alternate Saturdays, 10 until 6, and I took them on enjoyable activities affordable now that I wasn't subsidizing for adults' lifestyle. The relationship transformation proved remarkable. Without constant responsibility, without worrying about meal schedules, discipline, and perpetual entertainment, I could simply be their grandmother. I could indulge them moderately, laugh together, listen to school stories without distraction from pending household obligations. That morning, 3 months post-liberation, I awakened feeling something completely forgotten: positive anticipation. Not anxiety about impending demands, but genuine curiosity about what good things I might choose to do. David had recently informed me that Renata and Gustavo officially withdrew all property claims. Consultations with actual attorneys confirmed what I already knew: They possessed no legal rights over my house, and pursuing such claims would only result in elder exploitation charges. As I prepared for senior dance class, yes, at 66 I was learning salsa, I paused before the bathroom mirror. The reflection no longer displayed perpetual exhaustion and anxiety. Her eyes sparkled, her posture straightened, and she possessed something lost without realization: dignity. Locking my door, I walked toward the bus with confident strides. My house, my life, my decision. For the first time in years, those words didn't frighten me. They filled me with pride. I'd learned life's most crucial lesson: reclaiming self-respect knows no age limit. And once reclaimed, nobody can take it away again, regardless of how much you love them or they claim to love you. True love never requires dignity sacrifice. Genuine family never demands you diminish yourself so they can expand. This journey taught me that boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to healthier relationships. Setting limits doesn't mean abandoning family. It means honoring yourself enough to demand mutual respect. Elder exploitation remains disturbingly common, often masked as family helping family. But genuine assistance flows both ways, never reducing anyone to servitude in their own home. If you recognize yourself in this story, whether as the exploited or the exploiter, know that change is possible. It requires courage, support, and sometimes legal intervention, but reclaiming dignity is always worth the struggle.